Hi, hello everybody. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between the Buddhist concept of self or ego and the Western psychological concept of ego. And my printer is making a lot of grumbles in the background. All right, let's do this Dharma talk. I've noticed there's some confusion about these two concepts, which is why I wanted to talk about it. And people conflate the two, sort of with problems. But before I dive into this thing about the self, I'd like to share a koan that has been particularly meaningful to me. It's from the Book of Serenity. And the koan goes, a monk asked Joshu, "I have just entered the monastery. Please give me some guidance." Joshu said, "Have you eaten breakfast yet?" The monk said, "Yes, I have eaten." Joshu continues, "Then go wash your bowl." So my read of this koan is that it's telling us that awakening is very literally and simply manifested in daily activity. This is why Soto Zen in particular speaks of the unity of practice and enlightenment. Washing your bowl, cleaning up after yourself, taking care of the physical reality of your life is the ultimate expression of awakening. Now, why is this? I first encountered this koan of washing the bowl at age 25 and was very confused about it because I had a misunderstanding about the nature of the ego. So in Western psychology, the ego is an essential organizing principle of the mind. According to Freud, the ego mediates between the desires of the id and the superego. And you can Wikipedia that if you want to know more about Freud and the ego. I'm not going to get into that. But long story short, the Western psychological conception of the ego is that it is everything we are consciously aware of. It is our consciousness. So we need the ego. Without the ego, we would go crazy. We would have no psychological coherence. There would be no awareness at all. The Buddhist idea of ego is different, even though we use the same words, and I think a lot of confusion arises from this, and I don't know who translated this concept, and I want to have a word with them about it. But the Buddhist conception of the ego is that it's our selfish self. It's the self that creates suffering from greed, hatred, and delusion. So it is, conditioned by delusion. And so relaxing our hold on that selfish, isolated self leads to a decrease in suffering. Many white practitioners arrive to Buddhism through the door of either mental illness, usually depression, or hallucinogens, or both. The problem with this is that I think that comes from this Western ego notion of the self, right? And so the hippies of the 1970s had mind-altering experiences on hallucinogens, which led to an increased interest in Eastern spirituality. And many Western practitioners bring this framework to Buddhist practice and either want some big mind-altering experience of enlightenment, and I'm very guilty of this. I spent most of my 20s trying to have like the sky open up and things like that. And so we are confused when Buddhist teachers speak about departing from the ego or dissolving the ego, and people say that's impossible. I would die. So this viewpoint comes from a misunderstanding of what we're talking about. Because you're correct. You cannot survive without ego consciousness, the Western psychological concept of the ego. But you can definitely survive and thrive without arrogance and a limited, narrow view of the self. And that is really what we're talking about in Buddhism. So back to Joshu and the bowl. The goal of Buddhist practice is to forget the self. And by forget the self, I'm talking about the selfish self, the isolated self. And what better way to do this than clean up after yourself? It's not a mystical sky opening thing. Awakening is not a mind-altering experience or departure from reality. It is it's real. It's the realest real. And there's nothing more real than folding laundry and doing dishes. Cleaning is an expression of a self that acknowledges its interconnectedness. So when I was younger and practicing in Japan, I asked Ayama Roshi, the abbess of Nisoto, what is enlightenment? And she said, enlightenment is knowing that you are supported by the entire universe. And now, 7 years, at the time I was really confused by that, but now 7 years later, I would perhaps add to that a second part, which is that awakening is not only knowing you're supported by the universe, but also being beholden to that universe, belonging to that universe. Belonging to the universe and being responsible for that universe. I'm really interested in this word behold. The word behold, as in, to see, and the word beholden, as in, to belong to, have the same etymology. It comes from a old English word meaning to bind or to be held. So when a mother beholds her child and deeply sees her child, she's acknowledging that her child exists. But not only that, she's acknowledging that her child exists in relationship. When we are beheld, we are in turn beholden to that other because we exist in relationship. We belong to that other and are responsible for them. If we are beholden to the universe and to our life, then we have to show up for it. We have to wash our dishes, we have to do the laundry, and we have to be kind. We have to show up for Black lives. We have to show up for the environment. And it's not a one and done deal. We have to do the dishes every day. And that is where, again, this idea of practice enlightenment comes in. And this is why I know I'm not enlightened, because I'm 33 years old and to this day, whenever I do the laundry, I just dump it. Like, I have 2 hampers. I have a dirty clothes hamper and a clean clothes hamper. I just dump all of my clean laundry and I don't fold it, maybe ever, or until a week later. That's why I'm not enlightened. But this is why Joshu told the monk to wash his bowl. It's an instruction on the unity of practice enlightenment and an invitation to be supported by your life and be beholden to that life. All right, I hope that was helpful. Go clean your kitchen.